Hello students, welcome to Learner's Planet. In today's session we are going to discuss about the classification of living organisms. I hope you understand what is this classification. Classification basically means arrangement of living organisms into groups or subgroups depending upon their similarities and dissimilarities. If the similarities are there, definitely the organisms they are placed in a same group. But when there is some dissimilarity, these organisms they are divided into two subgroups or more than that according to the dissimilarities and the similarities. Right. So to understand these diverse living forms, the important kingdom system, the classification system which is used nowadays is actually five kingdom system. So this five kingdom system, it means that the organisms, all of the living organisms, they are divided into five major kingdoms. That means five major groups. And further, these groups, they are further subdivided according to their characteristic features. In today's session, I'm going to explain you the base or the criteria for this five kingdom system. Right, and of course you will come to know that what are the different kingdoms that of course you have to study according to your curriculum. Fine, so let us see that. Well, this five kingdom system, it was proposed by Sir R.H. Whittaker in 1959. And Sir Whittaker, he used basic characteristic features so as to classify the living organisms. Well, it is not the first kingdom system to explain or to classify the living organisms. There are two other systems like two kingdom system. There is a three kingdom system, four kingdom system, and then this five kingdom system. So, in simple terms, I can say that the one which is widely accepted, that is the five kingdom system. Right. So the base that or the criteria that Sir Whittaker has used, it was number one, the type of cell, that is the organism, it is made up of which type of cell, right? That is whether it is a prokaryotic cell or it is a eukaryotic cell. The second criteria to divide these organisms into groups is the level of cellularity. That means whether organism is made up of a single cell or it is made up of so many cells. Then further, if it is made up of so many cells, then what is the level of body organization? That is, what is the body design further, how these cells are arranged within an organism. So that complexity is the next criteria. Fine. Then the next criteria is the mode of nutrition. That means whether the organisms they are able to make their own food or they are dependent on other organisms for their own nutrition. So these are the basic points which were considered by Sir Whittaker so as to classify the living organisms. And after following these particular basic criteria, he actually divided all these organisms in five kingdoms. So now let me explain you how it was done and what are these five kingdoms. Number one thing that I said here is the type of cell the organism is made up of, right? That is the first criteria. So this type of cell, as it is already shown here in this picture or in this flow chart, so the number one thing is the type of cell, right? Cell, it can be a prokaryotic cell or it can be a eukaryotic cell. I hope you understand very well that what we mean by this prokaryotic cell or the eukaryotic cell. So students, this prokaryotic, it means what? A primitive type of cell. A cell in which a primitive nucleus is present. Right? So in these type of cells, the true nucleus is absent. But of course, the genetic material is present in a particular region and that is known as the nucleoid. So the organisms, all organisms which are made up of prokaryotic cells, they are grouped or they are placed in the single group, and that single group is known as kingdom Monera. So this Monera is the first kingdom that is proposed, or that was actually explained by Sir Whittaker. Fine. In this Monera, the basic characteristic features are like, as I already said, that they are prokaryotic. Secondly, they all are the unicellular organisms. So organisms that are unicellular and they are having prokaryotic cellular structure. Can you think of some examples for this now? They are like bacteria, cyanobacteria, or you can say it as call it as blue-green algae. Besides this, like Anabina, Nostoc, all these are the examples here, isn't it? So all these living organisms, they come under the same group that is known as the kingdom Monera. Fine. Further, next is the next type of cell is the eukaryotic cell. Now, further, all eukaryotic organisms are there, but these eukaryotic organisms, they are subdivided on the basis of its cellularity level, right? The level of cellularity. What I mean by this level of cellularity is that whether it is unicellular or it is multicellular. It means that the organism, it is, if it is made up of a single cell, right, and of course it is eukaryotic, then these eukaryotic unicellular organisms are placed in single kingdom or the single group, which is known as the kingdom Protista. So here comes the second kingdom, right? Besides that, this if the organisms are made up of many cells, that means they are multicellular. Organisms which are made up of more than single cell, they are the multicellular organisms, isn't it? Now, these multicellular organisms, when many number of cells are there, so I can say that this many cells means it can be up to millions or trillions, millions, billions, trillions, anything is possible in higher organisms. But lower organisms, there must be some limit. Besides this, the limit is it is related to the division of labor. It is related to the organization of these cells. That is, whether these cells are forming the tissues, organs, organ system, or they are not forming it. That means they are living simply as a colony. So these are actually the further criteria which can subdivide these multicellular organisms. But prior to this, the important characteristic to be considered for subdivision is the presence of cell wall and the or the absence of the cell wall. Now you understand what is cell wall. In some organisms, a dead a dead membrane is present. Uh, I mean, out to the outer side of the plasma membrane. A cell, the outer boundary of the cell is a living membrane, which we call it as plasma membrane. Now, this plasma membrane is having another layer in some organisms, and that is known as cell wall. So, whether this cell wall is present or it is absent, this is the next criteria so as to subdivide the multicellular organisms. Now, among this, if cell wall is absent, then there is the next kingdom, right? And if cell wall is present, then of course it is further subdivided on the basis of its mode of nutrition, right? So if the multicellular organisms, they are having cell wall, then if they are autotrophic, you understand what is autotrophic? It means the property by which the organisms can synthesize their own food. That means the self system is developed. Self system related to which process? To the nutrition. So they are nourishing themselves, right? So such organisms are the autotrophic, and such organisms which are autotrophic and they possess cell wall, they are multicellular and they are eukaryotic. So such organisms are placed in a single group, and that is known as plant kingdom or kingdom plant, right? Besides this, another group is there that is having the cell wall, but it is not autotrophic. It cannot synthesize its own food. Rather, it obtains the food from outside. So such heterotrophic organisms which are having the cell wall and they are eukaryotic and multicellular. So all such organisms, they are placed in a single group. and that group is known as what? It is fungi. The another point I discussed here is what? The cell wall is absent. There are the organisms in which the cell wall is absent. So such a group which is multicellular, eukaryotic, and which lacks the cell wall. And one more important point is that in such organism, the mode of nutrition is of course heterotrophic. See why this is important to mention here? Because if the cell wall is absent and they are multicellular and they are eukaryotic, then of course there should be some method or there should be some process by which they are obtaining their nutrition, whether they are synthesizing the food or they are not synthesizing. Accordingly, they have to be placed in a particular group, right? So these heterotrophic organisms which lack the cell wall, it comes in the another kingdom, that is animal. So here you can see one thing, that whether it is an animal kingdom or it is a fungi or plant, they all are multicellular organisms, right? But further, these are classified on the basis of the presence of cell wall and the absence of it, isn't it? Now here you can see that this particular kingdom, that is the fungi, it is having the characteristic features which is present in the in this plant kingdom as well as in the animal kingdom. Can you make some comparison here? See, this particular group is having the cell wall, right? But it is not autotrophic, right? So on the other hand, if I compare that, it is heterotrophic like animals, but it is having the cell wall. So because of such type of properties which is present in this single organism, partially which are related to plant as well as the animal kingdom, due to such type of confusion or such type of similarities as well as dissimilarities, this group is separated and thus it is making the another kingdom, right? So now here you can understand that first is prokaryotic unicellular, that is Monera, then unicellular eukaryotic is Protista, then multicellular autotrophic, that is forming the another kingdom, that is plant kingdom, then further multicellular heterotrophic, right? But in which the cell wall is present, that is another kingdom, that is fungi, and at last this eukaryotic multicellular organisms which are heterotrophic and the cell wall is also absent. That is actually the next kingdom which is known as the animal kingdom. Fine. So if we go according to the complexity, then this fungi should be numbered as third kingdom, then plant, and then animal. Now later after this, these kingdoms, that is plant or any other kingdom, they are further classified on the basis of its complexity and different other characteristic features. But if we compare the huge kingdom system, the kingdom that means there are the huge group of organisms, then according to that the 5 main kingdoms are in front of you now. And I hope that you must be able to understand that what is the criteria behind this type of classification, right? Further, I will come back with some new topic and we will discuss in a much more interesting way. Fine. So we'll continue further. Till then, goodbye. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.